Hi, in this video I'm gonna be showing you how I fix hierarchical material files made for Genesis 9 to be used on Genesis 8 figures in DAZ Studio. Since I did this with a Python script, I made 3 more parts showing you how I modify DSON files with Python. If you got no idea what I'm talking about, let me explain first. DAZ Studio is a software allowing us to load in human characters and modify their mesh. We can make people thin or thick, or even let them be insanely muscular or insanely fat. We can also go unreal by growing them ears like deer, or make their entire face look like a sorcerer's accident. By default, the figures are naked and bald, but we can get them the right hairstyling and dress them to our likings. The fun starts if we want to pose them. Since the figures are fully rigged, we can move every joint, like raising and lowering the arm, or bending and twisting the forearm. We can even load in a complete pose. Well, he looks a bit lonely, so let's send him a pretty lady. And now they are certainly happy, so let's give them that expression. Cause he's taller, she must look upwards and he downwards and more sideways. And they are lovers, so they smile at each other. In DAZ Studio we can not only work with human figures but also load in props of all kinds, like this Mediterranean alleyway. That's the right place for our couple, isn't it? Finally, we can set up a camera, inclusively depth of field and other parameters, and render the scene. So DAZ Studio has been around for quite a while now, and over the years has gone through some evolution that has resulted in various generations of their figure model, which at some point they started to call Genesis. In the meantime, we reached Genesis 9, and like before, they offer loads of assets specifically made for this generation. And being a company aiming at profit, they do everything to encourage you to hop over to Genesis 9 and buy a lot of the new assets. But if you already have a ton of assets, the Genesis 8 figures after all, you want to use the new assets on the old figures. Even though they tried not to reinvent the wheel for every generation, there are some incompatibilities between them, one of which concerns the hair. Demonstrating my problem is not too hard. I just have to load a Genesis 8 character. Here it is. And select the Genesis 9 hair asset, which bears the problem. Not all hair products make troubles, but James' hair does. If the figure is selected, the hair gets loaded using autofit. That means DAZ Studio will try to automatically drape the hair matching the head shape. Since this is a product made for a different generation, I get a dialog allowing me to further specify what I want to do. What I select here and why is not subject to this video. And also I want to point out that for some hair products like this one again, autofit is not the best option. But for now it does the trick. In the OpenGL viewport the hair looks all white, so I go for the iRay preview and there it appears brown. If I don't like this, the assets creator provided me with a couple of color options. But look what happens if I select one of these. DAZ Studio presents me a rather unspecific error and suggests looking up the log file. Thank you for that convenience. Well, maybe it's just this one material preset, but no, it's all of them. I already tried it, trust me. So let's have a look into the log file, and because the DAZ developers know their creature, they provided us with its own menu entry. If I select Open Log File, Studio opens my standard editor, which I move to the captured screen. I expect to see something like Error at the bottom of the file, and sure enough, here it is. The entry above tells us a bit more: invalid hierarchy for selected node, and no roots found. Also note that my first attempt got locked as well. A funny side note, the folder this entry refers to is not on my PC. It's likely one of DAZ developers' PCs. Oh, I love the quality of this software. Just to be sure that's not something else, I load a Genesis 9 figure, equip it with the same hair asset, and try different colors there. This time I get no autofit dialog because the generations are matching, and also changing the hair color works flawlessly. So then, what's preventing DAZ Studio to apply those materials to a Genesis 8 figure? To find it out, I'm gonna explore the actual materials file. And behold, from here on, it gets more and more techy. First, I must find the right file to inspect. Studio helps me by providing an entry in the Assets context menu. Browse to File Location will open the Windows File Explorer for me. And here I'm right in the corresponding Materials folder. Note that in this screen cap I already added a copy of this folder, just in case. The Materials folder contains some image files. These are the thumbnails DAZ Studio shows for the assets. But the files of interest are the ones with the DOF extension. So let's open one, shall we? This time I'm using Visual Studio Code to view the content. I simply drag the file and VS Code is bugging me with a warning, which is not a good omen. Looks like a binary file. Well, actually it's not. You see, DAZ Studio allows us to save everything either in a compressed or in a plain format. I'll show you. Here I'm saving the hair's materials file in my own folder, once compressed, and once uncompressed. And it's fairly easy to see that there is a significant difference in file size. 8 times bigger does not seem to be much on modern computers, but bear in mind that many products contain hundreds of files and are distributed over the internet, so compression is an obvious idea. That makes it a bit harder for us to read those compressed files directly, but only a little bit, because as you can see I simply unzipped the file with the first compression tool I could find on my PC, which is 7-zip in this case. The unzipped file I open in VS Code, and what I see now is much more appealing. This file format is what DAZ refers to DSON, and to someone knowledgeable it looks very familiar because it's actually a JSON or JSON, and they don't try to hide it. JSON or JavaScript object notation is well documented and widely used, and therefore very well supported, also by Python, to our benefit as we will see. So this file contains something devilish, which tells DAZ Studio not to apply it to anything else than a Genesis 9 figure. But how can I find out what it is? Eventually the file has more than 30,000 lines. Perhaps I should simply search for Genesis? Hello, here it is, in line 16298, and it's there multiple times. So yeah, our file has a C node in it that contains a bunch of nodes, which seem to be in a parent-child relationship. If this always includes the top node, there should be a Genesis 8 if I save it as a new hierarchical materials file from my test scene. In Visual Studio Code I folded the second level with Alt+J, Alt+2 to get a good overview. Note that we have the section Asset Info, Image Library, Material Library and Scene in this file. Scene is of interest because herein we expect a node referring to a Genesis 8 figure. And sure enough, here it is. But is this good news or bad news for us? I'd say neither nor, because now I can only apply it on Genesis 8 male and not on Genesis 9 anymore. Also, the generation 2 to 8 are gender dependent, so I couldn't even apply it on a Genesis 8 female. But what if I delete the reference to Genesis 9 completely from the file? First, I delete the hair node's reference to the parent. Which is not enough, I still get the error because DAZ Studio still wants to see a Genesis 9 figure. So I delete the parent node as well, and now this file works on my Genesis 8 figure. And as you can see, the hair became blonde, and now I do not get error messages in the log file anymore. My workaround has some little flaws, one of which is that the materials file is not as versatile anymore. With the hair item selected, I can still apply the material. Also, the figure node selected still allows the material assignment, but I get the same error message if I select something else in the figures tree. That is because now DAZ Studio does not know anymore what the actual parent is, because I deleted that information from the file. Sure, DAZ could have solved that using a clever algorithm, but I won't complain. Most material files are non-hierarchic, so I'm used to selecting the here node anyways. The other problem is that I need to do the changes for each and every material file in those products which rely on hierarchical materials. This of course cries for a script, so I recommend watching the other parts of this video. There I show you how I developed this script.